really the final nail in the coffin was one day I was anxiously pouring out my concerns and worries and everything to my spiritual director, and he pretty much just said, like, you are an idiot. You should propose to that girl. Like, stop. Stop. I was so white knuckled, stressing about what God wanted me to do, and instead it was through peace that he was actually leading me.
Hey, welcome back to the Come Holy Spirit podcast. I am Tom Wynn, joined with my dear friend Daniel, and today we have a special guest, Gentry, who is the director of young adult ministry in the Diocese of Dodge City. And Gentry is an amazing dad, amazing husband, and serves our diocese in so many ways. And we are excited to have him here today to kind of just walk through what that looks like as a Catholic and what that looks like in a world of 2025. Gentry, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Pretty good. Is there anything fun, exciting that's happening as we're heading slowly into Thanksgiving, into Advent, that you're doing with your family?
With my family, this is the time of year where we start to sort of get lazy on a bunch of things. And whereas at the beginning of the school year, we're like up and we're on time and we're making it to every place we need to make, for whatever reason, as it starts to, I don't know if it's the weather or what, we start to sleep in a little longer and get to places right at the edge of being on time. But today, last night before we went to bed, we made a decision as a family. Let's try tomorrow to just wake up really early and everybody get ready and everyone do their jobs. And if we do it, we'll get donuts. And so this morning, my kids got out of bed and they moved forward with purpose and intention, and we got donuts. We proved it to ourselves as a group. We can make it out of the house on time.
That is so awesome. I think as a motivator, a lot of people need, just being like, hey, you know what? If I get everything done in the morning, I'm just going to go get donuts. And it's also that time of the year where it's really dark until like 7:30 a.m. and then the sun starts going down at like 6. So then once you're in your evening time, or most people out of work, it's like, oh, well, there's no sunlight anymore. So you definitely sometimes need to hit those extra motivators for sure.
Daniel, do you have anything that's happening recently that's in your life?
I am getting ready to wrap up my first semester of seminary, which is really weird to say or think about. I had my apostolate on Sunday, and my buddy, the other seminarian that we do it together, he actually reminded me. He's like, hey, this is actually our second to last one. The next time we have our apostolate, we're done here, like for good. Like then we have a new assignment next semester. And I was like, wait a second, what? And turns out, so this weekend, we're going to mass with the nuncio, which is going to be pretty cool. We have to be like all formal, black suit and tie and everything. The following week is a silent retreat. Weekend after that's Thanksgiving break weekend. Weekend after that, we're done for the semester. So it is coming to an end very quick. And it feels like I barely got here. But I guess it's just kind of, as long as 7 years is going to be, the semesters are going to be flying by. So, but what about you, Tom? What do you got going on?
I think for me, it's been a complete contrast for the both of you guys. Like, it's not necessarily lazy. It's not necessarily feel like there's much anticipation for the end of anything. I think, funny story, yesterday, in our Catholic school science lab, there is a chair, and there's one of those office chairs, but it's kind of grandfathered in because it's old and we don't really want to get rid of it. So I'm lecturing. I was like, you know what? I should be cool to these 7th graders and lecture while I'm sitting in the chair. So I'm going through my lesson. We're talking about the natural law and the moral law. And here I am just sitting on my chair. Finally put some weight, lean back a little bit. And the chair is already a little bit broken. When you sit, you actually sit it to a slant. So it got worse, where I actually found out that's because of the wheel, and the wheel snapped off. And I'm like in the middle of a sentence and fallen back. And holy smokes, I think my life flashed before my eyes. And praise God that that these 7th graders laughed for a split second. But, I'm very blessed that they all ran over and asked if I was okay. Because it was like, honestly, that could have been really bad.
Oh my gosh, you guys just need to eventually get new chairs so you're not breaking them all the time.
Or maybe it's because of my weight. That's fine though, Daniel. I get it.
Okay. All right. Well, I think it'd be really good to transition, obviously, make some good use of the time here with Gentry here on the podcast. I'm actually really excited about this because I know we've mentioned Gentry's name before previously, and something you don't actually know, Gentry. I was talking about this with a friend like 2 days ago because I was like, oh yeah, like we're actually having Gentry on the podcast. they had no idea who you were because they're from the other side of the state. But I was like, he doesn't even know this. So, but early on, a lot of the ways that I would like structure how I spoke, especially for like catechesis, I kind of stole your style a little bit, especially when I was like 17, 18 years old. I was like, this is just a good flow. So just like how you like present stories. I always really enjoyed it, especially in high school. So when I was very early on in teaching catechesis, I was like, this is kind of what I want to roll with. And then now I've obviously made it my own in a sense, I guess. So very excited to have you on. First thing we kind of want to get into today is kind of just your background. Obviously, your path leading into where you are now, but obviously your Catholic faith, like how you grew up, like what roles your family played in that, or if it was like siblings or aunts or uncles. And then if there was like any like mentors you had in your life that kind of led you to where, you are in your faith now.
Sure. I think, first of all, to start with just my family, like my parents. And I lived outside of Hanston for a little while, and then I lived in Spearville. And my parents, all throughout my childhood, were great about teaching me and my brother how to pray, to go to Mass. We were involved in things at the church, and they gave in various ways to the church and donated things and participated in things. And so our life was integrated with the church. I didn't grow up with a sense of anything other, really, than like going to Mass on Sundays and being Catholic. But then it was my freshman year of high school when I had a shoulder surgery that took me away from the thing that I loved the most, which was baseball. It was devastating because all I wanted to do was play baseball and watch baseball and practice baseball and collect baseball cards, like everything. And that was when I think the Lord first really got my attention, sort of like the phone began to really ring as I searched for meaning in my life with this thing kind of removed from me after this surgery. And actually my sophomore year, I started, gaining strength and getting better and was ready to come back to baseball. And then I needed a second shoulder surgery. So that was the Lord like really getting my attention, making it clear that there's more to life than just baseball. And I needed something else in the center of my life than that. And so that's freshman, sophomore year of high school. And when I go off to college, for the first time, I meet other people who are my age, who are like serious about their faith. And there were so many things when I got to college that I encountered that I didn't know even existed before this. So even growing up Catholic, I had never heard of adoration. I didn't know you could go to Mass on a weekday. I didn't know people went to confession more than like once or twice a year. There were so many things about the faith that I was finally exposed to there in college and surrounded by friends who were being exposed to it at the same time. And it was just a great gift for me. And so that was at Fort Hays. And throughout that time at Fort Hays, I, for the first time, discerned my vocation. I guess had always assumed I'd be married. I never really thought about being a priest. And then a priest asked me in confession once, like, seriously, actually, have you thought about being a priest? The only thing I'd ever received before was like the elbow in the ribs, like, hey, you should be a priest, like that goofy thing that's not, very convincing or attractive. This was real. Like, have you thought about this? Because it matters that you think about it, So that sent me on this kind of 2-year discernment journey. So again, now for the second time in a big way, the phone was ringing. God was like trying to get my attention. The shakeout of that, long story short, is I wasn't called to be a priest. I also wasn't called to be a physical therapist, which is what I was studying in college. And I ended up proposing to my girlfriend and then getting hired by the Diocese of Dodge City. So since then, since we graduated in 2015, Sydney and I have been living here in Dodge. I've been working for the diocese, and we have 5 children now. And interestingly enough, just in the last, I'd say 3 weeks of my life, like the phone is ringing again, like constantly, like off the hook. And I can't tell what God is asking me to do at this moment, but he's getting my attention for some reason. I don't know yet. We'll see.
So along all of this, as you're going through and spending that time, how did you, were you still dating at the moment when that priest said, have you actually considered priesthood, or was it removed from that? Or was there a moment, even in your relationship with Sydney, where you're like, hey, I think I need to really consider this before we continue our relationship?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Sydney and I started dating when we were still in high school. So we got to college without this ever even entering my mind whatsoever. And this is 2 years into college when the priest asked me that. And it did kind of kickstart this really difficult season for Sydney and I, as I kept trying to grapple with this question. And then she, heroically, honestly, just sort of was patient with me and let me work through things. And we had a period of time where we sort of try to like take a break and try to envision ourselves doing something different. For me, that was like being a priest, and praying really intentionally about that. And I went on some important trips, like to visit the seminary and to visit, and I had some friends that were seminarians. So I was hanging out with them a lot, asking them probably too many questions, bothering them. And I had a spiritual director that I was meeting with on about a monthly basis. So even though that whole time what I wanted was like this billboard from God that just said, be a priest or be married, I did not get that. But instead, it was these little breadcrumbs all throughout about a 2-year period, from my seminarian friends, from the vocations director, from my spiritual director, from visiting the seminary. And eventually when I would pan out, I could see, okay, I think it's becoming more clear. The Lord's calling me to be married. And really the final nail in the coffin was one day I was anxiously pouring out my concerns and worries and everything to my spiritual director. And he pretty much just said, like, you are an idiot. You should propose to that girl. Like, stop. I was so white knuckled, stressing about what God wanted me to do. And instead it was through peace that he was actually leading me. And so when the right people helped me to step back and see those breadcrumbs and be at peace, it became more clear what I should do.
Wow. I think that's such a cool like perspective. And I think it's so cool that you actually took the time to go and discern properly. Cause I've met a lot of guys that they just had never I'm already dating this girl. Like I'll figure that out eventually sometime. And then they just never think about it. And I was kind of in that boat towards like, well, I never actually discerned the priesthood, never took it seriously, but I was like, oh, well, maybe if he's calling me, like, it'll just be a billboard and like, I'll just do it then. But yeah, that's true. It's like the breadcrumbs, and it's just the little inklings of like seeing where God is leading you. And I think that's so cool that you actually took that seriously. And then that your spiritual director helped you to see the full picture. And you're like, oh, cool. He is calling me to marriage. I think that's awesome.
I think it's totally within the parameters of providence or something that some men and women, like, it really isn't a big question for them. And they don't need 2 years of, I don't know, searching to figure it out. I think for some people it is more natural. They just realize I'm called to be this, I'm called to be that. For whatever reason, for me, God needed me to like really look in order to see him more clearly in my vocation. So,
and as your relationship with Sydney flourished and as you guys got married, first, can you walk me through how you guys met? When the cheesy stuff, like, how did you know, all right, you know what, Sydney, I actually really love you, and I can't see myself with anybody else but you.
The first time that I really noticed her, we were at a friend's house watching a movie, and they had like an L-shaped couch. And so I'm seated at the couch looking straight at the TV. She is seated on the L, and the light from the TV played off of her knees. Just, wow. I was like, I'm attracted to this girl. So there you go. There's the first moment. Then we entered into this period of time of like she knew my friends, I knew her friends, but we didn't really know each other. And what I didn't realize was our mutual friend was trying to set us up, basically, was trying to like bring Sydney into events or things that I would be at, including one time I hosted a Halloween party at my house, and she was there, and I did not invite her, but this other person did. Anyway, slowly we started to be put in contact more frequently, and then exchanged numbers at some point and texted back and forth. But I had just, wow, this is so silly. I had gotten out of a relationship that I thought, like, that's it. I'm done. I'm not dating anyone else, at least till I go to college. Like, I'm just going to enjoy the rest of high school with my friends and playing baseball, whatever. And then this girl enters my life. So I was even kind of just resistant from the beginning. But she was persistent. And so we kept seeing each other at more and more things, and eventually become friends and hang out at various places. And then, let's see, I don't know if she'd be embarrassed by me telling this or not, but we went to a baseball game, baseball tournament. It was my little brother's tournament. And we spent the whole day together at the game. All these moms are around us watching their sons play. And at the end of that day, I said that tomorrow when I go back to the tournament and you're not there, all those moms are going to ask if you are my girlfriend. Can I tell them yes? And she said yes. So boom, that's how it began officially, since you asked. Yeah. So then we were together all through college, really got built into that Catholic disciples community at Fort Hays, which was really good for us, really fruitful for us to have friends who were like moving along the same path. And so then I proposed to her while we were still in college. So our junior year of college, I proposed to her right outside of St. Joe's Catholic Church in Hays. And that's also where we got married. So Was that enough cheese? I could think of more cheese.
No, I think that's awesome. I think it's so lovely because first it's the knee that caught your attention, and I remember hearing that for the first time, and I'm like, of all things, you know what? I'm glad that it was the knee that did it for you. But I think it points to that there was this beautiful persistency, not just from Sydney, but also from you, Gentry, of like, wow, there is something here that you both desire that's calling you away from this naturalness of life, of all your normal desires that you've had. And I think that it plays a role now in how you guys live out your marriage. So what are some of the practical ways that you offer with you and Sydney that nurtures the sacramental graces of marriage that are freely given, but it aids in loving each other better and on obviously loving your children better?
Yeah, there's some big things like every year around our anniversary, we go on a trip, just the two of us, typically to a lake, and we stay in a cabin. It's nothing fancy at all. It's like one of the rental cabins at one of the Kansas lakes. And we drop off our kids with parents, and we go, and for like about 2 days, if we can pull it off, we don't do anything together except for like talk and pray and swim and read and not talk. Like we're just together for like 2 full days with no one else. That, interestingly enough, like just once a year has had a major effect, I think, on our marriage, because it's so easy, especially with 5 kids, to turn every day into just a completion of tasks, because there's so much labor involved in taking care of everyone and get everyone fed and their backpacks packed and everything else. So to take a serious chunk of time, at least once a year, to be just completely alone, that's been really, really fruitful for us. And then on the other end of the spectrum, like very small things, every morning before we leave the house, I take a crucifix off the wall and I bring it around each kid kisses it, and we say a little prayer. So that as a family keeps Christ kind of like in that moment, which is very tempting to make that moment just like pure rush. But then Sydney and I, before we get in our separate vehicles and drive our kids to separate places, we hug each other and we say a short prayer, just like thanking God for the other person and then asking God for some sort of action in their life that day. Like for me, for a very long time, I've had knee problems. So almost every day, Sydney says, God, thank you for Gentry. Please heal his knee. And I say something very similar back to her. So that's a little tiny way that we're like inviting God back into the relationship on a daily basis. And of course, there are multiple points throughout the day, but that one I think has been really key because it's like a pin right in the most tense moment of the whole day when you're like trying to just make it to get everybody everywhere on time. So those are 2 ends of the spectrum, I guess.
What do you think led you to being so intentional with like all these little things? Because it's so cool to see like how specific, like, you know, the cross with the kids and, you know, making sure you guys are praying for each other, or this like 2-day little weekend date that you guys go on every single year. Like what led you to, I guess, wanting to do that?
I want to give everything to God, I think. Maybe that's the root there, is like I don't want any obstacles in my heart between me and him. And yet I find there are all these obstacles because I'm an idiot, because I'm a sinner. And so I have to find ways, and I have to listen for him for ways to work on that, to give my heart to him more completely. And then extending from that is like to love the people that he puts in my life. First and foremost would be my wife and children. And same thing there. Like I want to love them as he calls me to love them. And the problem is I'm an idiot and I find all sorts of ways to mess that up. So I have to think of these like little ways to correct that and to like constantly work against it. Otherwise I will just fail in so many ways. So
for me, I think it's something that resonated. Like there's this common theme that I'm seeing from all these vocations, like listening to Daniel's conversation with Father Garrett, listening to Father Jacob, listening to Dean Carson, and also these other married couples that St. Mary's has kind of interviewed for Vocations Awareness Week, is that same common theme of, well, all that I am is a gift. So the only appropriate response is to give that entirely back to the Lord. And even for someone who's married, like that's not something that I would think of initially. Of my call to a vocation is, oh my goodness, Sydney's a gift. Me being a dad, me being a father is a gift. So therefore I should also give all of that back. And as I'm hearing this, there's a lot of sunshine and flowers, but what are some of the crosses that have enriched your marriage and enriched your view as a husband?
Well, a really recent one would be, long story short, I've had 3 knee surgeries in the last 5 years, and this constant kind of battle there with what to do with this, how to offer it to God, all of that. the most recent one was the most intense surgery, and it had me sort of sidelined for the longest amount of time, where I couldn't carry the kids, I couldn't carry anything, I couldn't walk very well. And so what came out of that, many beautiful things actually that I'm grateful for, but one in particular is Sydney did during that period of time, and she still is, but Sydney did during that period of time what she said she would do on the day that we got married. She loved me in sickness and not just in health. And so that was really beautiful to see that vow from 10 years ago be put on display by her in such a tangible and beautiful way. So even though there was a cross, and it's not over yet, still there was this beauty that came through that I think without it I wouldn't have seen, or we wouldn't have manifested in such a way. So there's that. There's like the ways in which the other person loves the other person, even in the difficult times, that in a way is more beautiful than when everything's just warm and fuzzy. And then another cross I think in marriage is this realization that the other person can't possibly know you the way that you want to be known. The other person can't possibly understand you the way that you want to be understood. And so this is another thing that pushes one, I think, hopefully back to God, where you realize, well, even this person that knows me better than anyone else in the whole world, there's still a distance between us because we're human beings. And it pushes that yearning for being known and for being loved closer and closer to Christ, really, because you have to go to him if you want that need fulfilled. So it's a strange cross in a sense. If the two people were to do that together, it pushes them closer to Christ in a good way, and it strengthens the relationship. If one of the people is expecting that infinite love from the other person, they'll be disappointed because the other person can't give it, being a finite person. So that's a kind of a constant struggle in marriage, I think. And yeah, fortunately for us, we've kind of maintained this idea of like moving sort of further up the triangle, as it were, closer to Christ, and then therefore closer to each other, rather than sort of like competing for that with each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that is so beautiful that you guys have had this relationship with Christ and together. And I think that's so awesome. Like you really like narrow down on like, oh, even through my sickness, even through the struggles, even through not being able to hold my kids and all this stuff, like she's still there. Yeah, that's just really a testament to just the relationship that you guys built, and specifically with Christ as well. And obviously another major part of the sacrament of marriage is when you guys introduce your kids into the world. It was so funny. I told Tom, this was like probably 7 podcasts ago, but the one time we had mentioned you, I was like, yeah, like when I went down there, Gentry had like 2 kids. Now he has like 17. And Tom was like, disclaimer, Gentry does not have 17 kids. But yeah, so obviously you guys were dating, married, and then eventually started having kids. What was that experience like, becoming a father for the first time?
Wow. For the first time, we were 22 when we got married, and we got pregnant within that first year of marriage. So our first child came along when we were 23. So many people, including like the nurses in the room, treated us like kids, which was a strange experience, especially for Sydney. We were still just like barely out of college, and even at work, I was the youngest one here at the office. Sydney was the youngest one at her place of work. So in so many realms of life, we were like still the kids, and then we had a kid, and it just kind of blows your mind. And also it makes you responsible like immediately. Like even if I was responsible for things before, it's hard to compare to that instant change of like, now I have this tiny life that I am in charge of, and have to guide and clean and everything. So even like those first diapers to think back about is so funny. When we were changing his diapers in the hospital for the first time, just how foreign it all felt compared to now, 5 kids later, where changing a diaper is like, you don't think about it. It's so routine. So comparing now to then, I think that's one difference, is like everything just felt so new. And each child has their own unique personality, and each one is a new soul. But that first time, it's hard to compare. It's just everything is new. So
that's so good. I think, yeah, a lot of people will probably think when they start having kids that like, oh, well, like it's just going to be a mini me, and it's just going to have the same exact personality that I do, which is, I assume, not the case. But so you talked about a little bit ago as well, like, again, like God's infinite love and how it's hard because sometimes we don't want to get to a point where we're expecting that type of love from a person because we're not God. But so now having kids and now having 5 kids, how did that shape your understanding with how God loves us?
Having kids is such a humbling experience because, first of all, they shine a light on your imperfections without trying to, because you get more angry than you should about something, and then you have to remember, like, oh, that's right, he's 3. I'm expecting him to act like he's 25, you know? So first of all, there's that like humility that comes in, and it breaks hopefully it breaks your selfishness. I thought marriage was doing that when we first got married, like teaching me to put someone else before me, whatever. But then having multiple children does it, to the nth degree, because you have these multiple people in the house that have needs and desires that you have to put before your own. So that's been interesting too. Each additional child has sort of shifted me deeper and deeper into this dadness, of fatherhood. And so each time you get a deeper glance or a deeper understanding of God's fatherhood. And yeah, so even that is humbling, because you realize, like, oh, you've loved me like this forever. The whole time I'm just now learning how to love like this, and yet you've been doing this for me all along. So you have these checkpoints along the way where you realize even more how the Father is patient with me, how he forgives me, how he wants me to grow and not just like stay right where I am. So yeah, each step I think brings you a little deeper into that, which I'm grateful for.
There are so many funny stories that I hear from you of your kids and all these other things, and I think that offers a lot of joy, simply as a parent, but also for those who are like excited to be parents, or those who kind of see parenting as this evil, scary thing of, well, I'm never going to be a parent because I don't want to deal with kids. But I think you guys offer that joy very well, even when you're humbled and remember that, oh, they are only that age. And so what are some stories, or just one in particular recently, that you've kind of reflected on and said, you know what, I am so incredibly proud and lucky to be dad, and this is something that the Lord has called me to be?
Part of what you're asking there, I think, is the beauty of marriage and family life, which I experience as a roller coaster. So, and I mean in the course of one day. So you wake up and some kid does something just like ridiculously beautiful. Like when they're sleeping and at peace, it's amazing. So Sydney and I will, we'll hold each other and look at them and just melt. And so you're like this, and then one of them throws a toothbrush into the toilet and then back down. And then, it's just all day long, these, like, you're riding up and down this wave, which even that experience, I think, is kind of beautiful, adventurous. I think that most of my life will be worked out. Most of my, like, sanctity will be worked out basically between, like, the bathroom and the kitchen. Like, that area, so much family life happens just in that little space. And there's highs and lows, and there's funny stories, and there's sad things and everything else. So if I can like maintain union with God throughout that whole place and all those ups and downs, I think that would be probably like the path for me for sanctity. Funny thing recently that's been going on, this is like a trend, not so much just one story, but my 2-year-old boy, which 2-year-old boys are just the best. Right now, he will sometimes throw a fit, and he will have a long list of demands and very forceful. And you might complete all those demands exactly how he has requested. And at the end, he just moves on. He doesn't say thank you. And then there are other times where he'll be like sort of talking to you, and you'll say, give me 1 second. I have to go put this in the dishwasher. And he'll go, thank you, Dad. Like, he thanks you for things that have nothing to do with him. But then when you satisfy everything he's asking for, couldn't be bothered. Just hilarious. I don't know.
I'm going to go put this cup in the dishwasher. Thanks. I appreciate that. It's really good for you.
Yeah, he appreciates when you do things that serve other people, I guess. Thank you, Dad. That's what he says.
There's also this trend on social media where if you see, like, you're going to your boss and telling your boss updates throughout the day that are just boring, like, oh, I put the new copy paper into the printer. All right, this is my 3rd time going to the bathroom. And that's what it reminds me of, is like all these things that are just good updates. It's like, oh, thanks for telling me. But when it comes down to like things that are just for your 2-year-old son, he's like, I guess that was good. But onto your professional role, Gentry. Could you talk a little bit about what you do? Because I would say that a majority of people don't really know a director of young adult ministry even exists for our diocese. And so what do you do? What is what do you think is something you're most proud of that you get to work on for the diocese also?
So I think my main job, like my main mission here, is to keep my eyes peeled for disciples and then bring them together. I use the analogy sometimes of like hot coals on a grill. You need the hot coals together in order to cook the steak. If they get too far spread out, they tend to die out. And I think especially in our diocese, there's a real danger for loneliness where a person may choose to follow Christ in an intense way, in a passionate way, and then they look around and they feel like they're the only one in their parish, in their town, whatever. And so much of my job over the past 10 years has been kind of keeping my eyes peeled for those people and then bringing them together. Sometimes it's super informal, like this person, let's grab a coffee. Sometimes it's more formal, like in the summers when we run summer missions. So like both of you, having done prayer in action, you've been a part of that experience where you're brought into close contact with these other disciples. And then my favorite thing is to watch the friendships form out of that. That's been maybe one of the greatest gifts from this job over the last decade, is watching how sometimes these people get brought together from various backgrounds or whatever, and they end up actually sustaining real friendship under the aegis of Christ. And that's what does it for me. Technically, my job includes everyone from age 39 to 18, if you're going by the USCCB's definition of a young adult. But then also, because we're a small diocese, I do a lot of youth ministry stuff too, so that's 18 and below. And then I'm also the photographer for the diocese and the website guy, and we're a small place, so everybody wears a bunch of hats. But it's definitely those times when you get to see people be brought together and follow Christ together that I think is what I'm most proud of when that happens. Most grateful to be a part of.
I think it's really awesome you illuminate the isolation aspect in the diocese as well. And I think it's really good, like all the programs, they do help bring a lot of the young adults together, because it's so easy to get caught up into just a world of like, oh, well, there's nobody in my specific town that does anything. Like there's no like programs or things that we get together often. So it's really good that you guys are focused on kind of like closing that gap. I know even just like the little ways, like I know like we're going to Seek out in January, and it's like just getting people together that are from the diocese to even like have a dinner or something. And yeah, I did realize you guys fill a lot of different roles at the chancery. Like everybody has like 7 titles. And it's like, oh, well, I do this and this. And it's, it's, that's kind of one of the things with the small diocese that I feel like a lot of bigger dioceses don't see. So with the young adults in the diocese though, what are you seeing that they're currently seeking as a part of in the Catholic faith, or seeking with a relationship with Christ?
I think that young adults in our diocese fall into like a couple different camps. And there are some of those who they grew up here and they went off to college and they went to like a university that had campus ministry, and they had that experience of being with all these other young people who are also searching for the Lord, and they had that experience, and then they look back here and they're terrified to come home because they know that same thing doesn't exist here. And there's that group. And then there's the other group who maybe never left. They stayed here, they went to community college, and they haven't even yet had that experience of being around a group of people like that, at a Newman Center, at a St. Isidore's, or there at Newman, or any of those places in our state or beyond, where there's like a vibrant Catholic college culture. So for the ones who are terrified of coming home, that's part of the reason that I reach out to them and try to get them together as much as I can while they're in college and even while they're back home for break, so that maybe they can run into those other people who are here. And then, so that's a cool thing when you see those two groups kind of meet. And so like the locals, in a sense, they see something in those other students that they haven't experienced, that they want. And then the ones who are away, they see in the locals like a potential for actual community if they were to move home. So sometimes I get to see this play out like literally in my living room when we have some event, and I see these two groups in the same place, and it's like, yep, see, this is possible. It could actually happen. Now, one thing that if I could preach to every like graduating college senior every year, is like that experience in college, that is unique to college. It doesn't come back. You'll never be in a time, and probably never be in a time and place in life again where like you can just stay up till 2 a.m. eating pizza, like going deep with some people you just met, like, and form these friendships like that. Because once you enter into the adult life schedule and everything else, that's just not really a reality. So friendship takes a lot longer to form, typically. Building community takes a lot longer, but that's okay. But it can be done here. So that's one of the things I think both groups desire it, but they're coming at it from different angles, and you have to like bring them together to let them see that it's possible.
A big chunk for this for me also, it points to the idea that like we are not always going to be surrounded by people our age. We're going to live in communities that is very diverse in age and ethnicity, etc., and also belief. And so I think that what I've kind of noticed in the young adult community right now is that they are seeking. Like that is really mind blowing to me in the first place, is that guys Daniel and I's age are really seeking for something so concrete, and even the gals are searching for this concrete community. And it's very impressive to know that there's a shift in culture that I didn't think was going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, and if you'd allow me to just heap some praise on you both for a second. I've seen this before, obviously, with both of you in Prayer in Action, but then seeing it more recently, Tom, you're doing that thing like where you move back home and you get involved in your community in really actually profound ways, and not just seeking your own friendships or community or something with people who are just exactly like you. You're expanding that in every direction and serving the parish in so many ways. And then I can see from my vantage point, like this ring of friends around you, which is really beautiful to watch. And so I felt like for a long time that we were sort of co-workers in this little slice of his vineyard. And then just last week, the 5th and 6th grade vocations day, I've got some great photos of you, Daniel, standing in the middle of all those kids, and you're like pumping them up when they're playing the game. And in that moment, though, it was a lot of fun, a lot of energy, but I could feel that same thing, like that sense of like co-workers in the vineyard, where you clearly weren't there for like self-aggrandizing anything. Like you were there trying your best to build these kids up in the faith, to introduce them into something, to help them and just have like fun during that day, to open their minds to whatever God would have for them on a vocations event, you know? And so, yeah, I'm grateful for the work that both of you have done and are doing and will do. So thanks.
No, that is so incredibly kind of you, Gentry, because it gives myself, I'm sure for Daniel too, so much bread for the journey. And I also believe that it's so refreshing to have you in our diocese being willing to have this initiative for innovation of like, guys, first our diocese is lacking. Like, just a disclaimer for everybody, like without Gentry, I am pretty confident that I would not have the same experience within my faith that I did in Prayer in Action. Like without Gentry, I don't think that Prayer in Action would have existed in our diocese for a hot minute. But even then, this reality that because of these experiences that you are offering to the young adults in our community, and this plead with everybody of our diocese saying, this actually matters. And I think that aids in how Daniel and I interact with not just each other as really good friends, but also the people around us, of like, this Catholic thing is the reason that will get us to heaven, and we are willing to offer it in the best way that we can.
Yeah, so obviously holidays coming up and the seasons, and I know you've talked a lot about the intentionality with the little things with your wife and with your kids, but as a Catholic first man, as we see you all the time, how do you prep going into these seasons, and just how does this time of the year look for you?
With Advent in particular, one of the things that we've sort of developed as a family is we have the Advent wreath that we set in the middle of the kitchen table. We put the candles in it, and every night during the season of Advent, we turn off all the lights and we light the corresponding candle to the week we're in, and then we sing this song together as a family, which is pretty clunky because, first of all, none of us are really gifted singers. Maybe some of my children will be good, but not me for sure. But we do it nonetheless, and then you blow out the candle at the end, and then we try to sit in that silent moment for as long as we can, which with 5 little kids, it's like 0.3 seconds sometimes, but we try. So I look forward to that every year now as part of our like family Advent practice. And then I have a group of other men that I'm in this, whatever you want to call it, men's group. That's the name, I guess. And we do a shared fast during Advent, and we do a shared, we're spread out throughout the diocese. So once a week we get together on Zoom after we've all put our kids to bed, and we read the readings for the upcoming Sunday. So that's just a way to try to push back against like the rush of this period of the year, which is rush for all sorts of reasons, and also push back against like this like Christmas culture that we live in, where like, as I'm sure you know, if you've been to a grocery store yet, it's already all Christmas. But we as Catholics know, like, no, actually that comes later. We have Advent first. So with these other men, just to really keep the focus on Advent during Advent, the readings and the shared fast, and then to celebrate well in the Christmas time. So that's a family section and a personal section. Does that, the Advent wreath that we have, by the way, the Advent wreath that we have, there was a tree that was cut down here at the Chancery, and I took some of those chunks and I traveled to Garden City, and I met Father Jacob in the Target parking lot late at night, where he got out his chainsaw and shaved off multiple pieces. So I have these perfect sized tree trunks that I put the wreath into. So
that is so creative, and I think it makes it more special as well than anything, because you have like a story connected to like literally the wreath and just all the parts of these traditions. That's so cool.
yes, I hope that wasn't incriminating for Father Jacob.
It's not. You can always find Father Jacob doing more incriminating things, and so for him to always have a chainsaw ready, I think might say a lot about him as a priest, but grateful to have him.
Yes, definitely. I think it's good that a priest have a lot of different tools depending on where you're at, especially in smaller dioceses. But I also wanted to ask a little bit more on the prayer life side, because obviously you're a very busy guy. You know, as we talked about a lot, like a big family, you have a lot of roles, you're doing a lot of things. I think it would be very naive for somebody to look at all the things you're doing and not correlate it to you having a really good relationship with Christ. So I was very curious just how your personal prayer life with God looks like, and just how you go about incorporating that throughout your days.
I'm really motivated by first St. Paul's directive to pray without ceasing, 1 Thessalonians 5:17, to pray without ceasing. So I think that's like the foundation. That's like the ground level of like, okay, my goal is to be in communication with God throughout the entire day, offering my whole day to him. So that starts with this morning offering, this like essential, like right when I wake up, down on the floor, giving everything over to God, thanking him for this new day, asking him to make me the man he wants me to be, and all, whatever else is on my mind and heart at the time. So that's like the beginning point, sort of. And then the goal would be to maintain that thread throughout the whole day, whether I'm taking care of kids or working for the diocese or whatever, to maintain that union of heart. But again, I'm an idiot, so I break that union all the time, and I have to find ways that are concrete and repeatable that I can like be drawn back in. And so over a period of time now, for quite some time, my routine has been sort of solidified with like a chapter of scripture every day, and liturgy of the hours every day, and a rosary every day, and 15 minutes of silence. And so those things, and they come in at different times of the day. I'm not saying I have them like patterned out, like I do them all at the same time. They come kind of based on the day and the shape of the family life, because some days you're all together and that all gets pushed into the afternoon, or maybe it can come in the morning before you have a lot of things to do during the day or whatever. But maintaining those constant things with the help of my spiritual director too, like helping me settle on what they should be and what's too much and what's too little. But those things have carried me for a very long time. So yeah, that's kind of like the rule of prayer for me, is maintaining those things and then trying to stay in touch all day.
And as you're praying, I think that plays a big role in discernment in general for our vocation. And so, Gentry, do you have any kind of like some good rule of thumb, some bumper rails for how a person should properly discern marriage? I think we've had religious on, so like, what is the best way for a young guy, a young gal to properly discern marriage and discern it well, while still allowing Christ to knock on your door and keep ringing of, hey, maybe at some point you should also truly consider religious life?
Who are you and who am I? I think take that to prayer, to just constantly be asking that question to God, who knows us better than we know ourselves. Who are you and who am I? Because he puts on our hearts certain desires to lead us. And so if it's the case that I have this desire for marriage and things in my life sort of line up that way, and I'm living in such a way that I could make a gift of myself to someone else, and if someone else comes into my life who seems to fit pretty well, like as you're measuring each one of those things or evaluating each one of those things, if in the background you're wondering who is God and who am I, then I think typically that narrative will like come more into focus. It'll be more clear to see, okay, I am this way and God has made me this way and it is good and he wants me to do X or, whatever it is. So I think that that's a pretty foundational question for that discernment.
No, I think that's super helpful. I think like a couple of weeks ago, I kind of met with one of the young adults in our community, and we were chatted about like, well, how do we even talk about vocations? How do we even think about it in the first place? And that's kind of where we both landed on was, I have to first ask who God is to me. And then I also have to know who I am and who I am to God, because then nothing else really matters of if I don't know my identity in my relationship with the Lord, and I don't know the Lord's identity in his relationship with me, then none of that really matters. I can't date someone I don't know.
To have that sacramental vision, that sacramental worldview, where you realize that God has made everything, including me. He's holding me in existence even now, even though he doesn't have to. He just seems to think that maybe I would like it, And therefore, like, everything has a purpose. That's so different than the worldview of like we're all just sort of atoms and a collection of chemicals and things, and we just sort of bump into one another. And those are two opposing worldviews. Sometimes it's tempting to think like, well, nothing really matters that much. Whatever I do with my life is fine, as long as I'm okay with it. That's a tempting ideology. But if we can keep our eyes tuned in for this sacramental worldview where everything has purpose and God is bringing us to himself in all these ways, like these really intimate, intricate ways, then we can see those things. We can see those breadcrumbs, and it becomes more clear what he's actually calling us to do. And we can sort of move forward with faith or with confidence in following him. So
he truly does have a plan. And it was so funny. We were reading Lucretius in my Greco-Roman classics class. And Lucretius's point of view is like, oh, we're just a bunch of atoms and there's just void. I think it's atoms and void. And like, that's it. And that everything that happens is by chance. And obviously that's not what we're learning at seminary, but the teachers were giving a case like, hey, it's good to read the other side of things. But yeah, it's truly like God does have a plan for all of us. And yeah, I think that is super important, finding out who he sees us as. And so much of that, like I've been learning a lot with like St. Ignatius and his style of prayer. And it's just like slowing down and asking God, hey, how do you see me in this moment? And just giving him time to respond. It takes, obviously a lot of time in prayer to find where we sit with God, but it's super important.
Lucretius was one of my favorite reads in college on the nature of things and hearing the atoms, and honestly just recognizing that, there was a part of me that still probably believes I just a bunch of little things put together exist. But besides that, thank you, Gentry, so much for your time. Thank you for offering us this window into the married life from someone who is so willing to answer God's call, even on the days that it's hardest, and willing to do the work that kind of goes unnoticed in our diocese, and laying this foundation for all these young adults to live a life of faith and slowly build this culture of, are you willing to respond to whatever the Lord calls you? But so grateful for you. And
thank you.
Again, this is the Come Holy Spirit podcast, and we will catch you guys on the next episode.